Just a little bit about me and the organisation. So I'm the HR business partner for the Guinness Partnership, but I'm going to be talking about a different organisation today. It's a not-for-profit organisation, and we had 200 staff there. Just to put it into some sort of context, the business that we're talking about was going through quite a lot of significant change in the past 3 years. A greater focus on the customer, both internal and externally, and an efficiency across the business. HR, quite a big department for 200 staff. There was a service centre which consisted of 3 HR coordinators, which also looked after facilities. There was a HR team leader, which was me at the time, a HR business partner, an L&D manager, a HR manager, and a HR director. And for 200 staff, yes. So we were keen on HR. So this sort of journey I'm going to talk to you about was very much about how we had to go back to basics in order to add more value later down the line. So what was the situation? I'm going to take this for you. So just to put it into some sort of context, the HR manager, who would normally be running the operational side of things, was off on maternity leave, so we were very much being managed operationally by the HR director. Very passionate person about HR, very demanding, high drive for customer service, very fast paced, and a drive for accuracy. And this person shaped HR, raised its profile in the organisation, and sort of set it up for what it was at the time that I joined. There were KPIs, but they were only for the HR service centre. The only KPI was very much, if you had an email, you had to clear the email inbox every single day without fail, and the electronic inbox as well. Generally, we got good feedback from the business on all areas of HR, but not all was rosy. There was very, very long hours, longest in the company, very stressed staff, most were new, you'll see why in a minute. High error rates, disorganised and unstructured, complex and arguably unnecessary a lot of the time processes, and we were doing a lot of pointless activities as well. One that was a particular favourite of mine was saving delivery slips, putting it in a file for apparently no reason whatsoever. We had 6 years worth of delivery notes for everything that we did in the company. File was this big. Things like that. There was high turnover, so in HR we had 120% labour turnover in 2 years. So hence you could see why everybody was new, and that resulted in very low knowledge about sort of processes and experience from that side of things. And the thing that was quite key was we were driving the wrong behaviours. So this KPI that we had about clearing the inbox, I found that we were quite simply sending emails to come back into the inbox the next day, so that at the end of the day there was no emails in there, but it was taking time to obviously do that. Always ways around processes and KPIs, isn't there? So we had short, quick replies to customers, again just to get them out. So we were only giving managers the bare minimum of our responses. We were double handling, and we were quite jumpy and panicky if people come into the office. All sort of trying to jump on that person to try and help the situation. So that was where we were. Creating robotic staff who were potentially scared to challenge, and we were too busy to improve. And we all had this kind of feeling at the time that we could be so much more, we could do better, and we then asked the question of, are we doing too much of the wrong thing? So I was talking to the HR director about this, and who again I've mentioned before had set up this sort of this department, and she gave us the go ahead to investigate. That being said, the expectation was still set that we still needed to maintain the current level of performance, and I've already explained we were working long hours and what have you. So perhaps naively we cracked on anyway. We did something called the systems thinking intervention. For those of you who don't know what that is, we basically tried to gather information to see if we were aligned to the needs of the business, and then we were going to change our service as a result of that to sort of make improvements. We tried that. As I said, we already had a lot of work on, and it didn't work. The data that we got was unreliable. We weren't getting consistent results. We just quite simply didn't have the time to do a proper job of this. We underestimated how much was needed. So what did we do? We quite simply, we paused, and I just want to explain how difficult that actually was to stop what we were doing. To stop this machine that we had created was an immense amount of effort, but quite simply we needed more capacity. So I remember the meeting vividly. We met and we discussed all of our sort of frustrations and writing down, and just generally what we felt was inefficient and what we generally thought was wasting time or particularly timely processes. And we sort of developed this notion of challenging everything that we do. So, so basically, as a result of that, we got to work, and over the next month or so, we added structure. So we had daily catch-ups, so everybody knew who was doing what on that particular day. We stopped reports that we were sending out to the business, and guess what? Nobody chased them. So what value were they actually adding? I don't know, but nobody chased them. We stripped out steps from the top 10 time-demanding processes, just to make them faster. Electronic drive, that was a good one. We didn't have employee folders. We had 20 folders per person. There'd be one in contract, there'd be one in disciplinary, one in agreement. It took forever to find anything. Because if you wanted to find out if someone had a grievance, you just had to know that they had that, so it was taking a lot of time. So we reorganised that. We emptied the office. We binned half the stuff that was there because we just weren't using it, we weren't needing it. We produced template letters, so even bare sort of basics like this, and we stopped pointless activities. So then we had a bit more capacity. So we'd made a good start by this point, and we were starting to sort of feel a little bit more positive about the situation. So we did that systems thinking intervention, and we wanted to truly understand what it was that the business wanted, and not what we thought the business wanted from us. So we collected 460 pieces of demand for the HR service centre. We interviewed 20 managers and pretty much asked the questions of what do you value, what don't you value, what can we improve. We sent a staff survey out to all staff as well. And from all of this data that we got, we developed together as a team a purpose for each area of the HR department and what matters to our customer. And that helped us actually going forward, because it helped us to challenge ourselves that should we be doing this? Is this aligned to actually what the business wants us to do? So that was really good. And we analysed the data that we got, and we were looking at things like where did it come from? Was it one stop? Did we deal with it immediately, or did we pass it on to somebody else? And then, quite importantly, we analysed whether it was value or failure. Again, for those of you who don't know, in terms of value and failure, value is something that we want to have that demand because it is aligned to our purpose. Failure, we shouldn't be getting in the first place. So, how are we doing after we analysed all this? So 72% of all the demand that we got was failure demand. So that's 72% of every query we got asked we didn't want. It wasn't aligned to our purpose. And that was things like the top demand that we had was chasing. So 11% of all the demand was where are you up to with my query type questions. One stop was 70%, which at the time we thought was really good. When we looked into it a little bit deeper, that 70% was we were just sending quick emails, and the manager was coming back with new queries, but we should have known that they wanted that information. And 20% we were redirecting to another department, so it shouldn't have been coming to us in the first place. The feedback that we got from the business from our interviews were that we were friendly and keen to help, but there was a higher rate and it took a long time to come back on my query. I've actually put this quote in because I think it sums up where we were at the time, that you're always trying to deliver a Rolls Royce, but sometimes I just need a car, was one quote from a manager. General kind of quote we receive quite often: we send too many emails if I don't read them. And that your service is reactive, but the organisation wanted a more proactive HR department. So the data did prove that we were trying to do too much of the wrong thing. So we basically came up with ways to reduce demand, and that's how we started to change the culture in the department. Now this was a bit of a tough sell, because I already explained how sort of passionate the director was and who had created this. And it was a difficult message to sell, really, to say, that we're not as aligned to the business as you might have sort of thought. So we did that though, and we gave assurance and trust that we were going to turn this around, and and we got buy-in from that point of view. So what did we do? Well, we slowed it down as much as we possibly could to focus on the bigger picture. So rather than sending out all these quick emails, let's just slow it down and think for a little bit longer. Ditch the KPIs, and we focused on quality. We did introduce more measures later down the line, but for the time being, we just stopped those. We gave more updates to customers as to when you're going to get an answer back on your query. What else did we do? We gave more information in job adverts. We're getting a lot of questions from candidates saying, asking a bit more information, so we started to do more of that. We developed frequently asked questions, and a lot of people were asking for job descriptions, so we put all of that online. We developed a weekly newsletter, which went down really, really well. we're getting a lot of demand from our HR system, which was terrible at the time. You guys might have heard me mention that in the past. So we actually sort of did drop-in sessions for that to train staff as to how to use it. We reviewed all the processes, which there was hundreds, so we reviewed those and stripped it out as much as we can, clarified roles, and basically we created value-adding reports that was based on feedback as to what the business wanted. We also did a data check and cross-reference with payroll because we were getting sick of saying that people telling us that we were sending out the wrong salary, which is terrible French. So what happened then after we did all of that, because that was months worth of work and there was a lot of pain that went into there as well. So we did a demand capture exercise again, and we had can I have an update went down from 11% to 2%. People were asking before, can I have additional information? That was 15% to 5%. And there was a new demand that we got, which is here is an update. So as an unknown consequence of all of this, the business was actually talking to us more, giving us information that we actually wanted, which was really positive. And guess what? HR staff stopped resigning, which was great. Myself included. And we were quite simply more engaged. We were having fun. We did flip chart papers on the wall of just everything that we'd changed. There was 3 sort of huge pages of everything that we'd done that we had to revisit every now and again when the mood was a little bit low. But we started to say, it's okay to make mistakes because we can learn from them. And we started joking that we were changing the world, but that actually started to become a common phrase and goal that we said in the office. We were just still keen to be more strategic and proactive, and we were getting feedback from the business that had massively improved, and the changes had been noticed. And the HRBP service has improved because we were giving more value-adding data, and we had more time to develop the coordinators who started to become advisors and were taking work off HRBP from employee relations cases. So by this point we had the bug. We were saying, okay, well, we've done all of this, what are we going to look at next? How else can we add some value? So we started to capture and analyse rework, so anything that we were having to redo, we were noting down to see if there were any patterns there. We started looking at end-to-end recruitment time. How long does it actually take once we have a resignation to actually somebody leaving? It took 10 weeks on average. That's interesting because most of our notice periods were 1 month, so that means that every time we had a vacancy, it's likely we were going to be short-staffed for 6 weeks. So we changed our recruitment process to make that faster. Grievance and disciplinary, we started analysing them. Are there any themes? Transpired that there was a lot of process-related disciplinaries, so we did training around that and produced manuals in other departments. We developed learning review forms for training so we could demonstrate we're adding value from all the training that we were delivering. And we produced dashboards which were really useful from feedback that we had, which basically compared department by department for turnover, absence. We published it to all managers, which was uncomfortable for some. And basically that became a standing agenda item on our senior management meetings, and attendance actually improved as a result. Started to review exit interviews, tracking trends which fed into our strategies, and we continued to capture demand and gather feedback to ensure that we were still aligned with the business. And we got a new HR system eventually as well, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the next slide. So, I've just painted there the rosiest picture about where we'd come from. Wasn't all rosy still, though, I'll be completely honest. Facilities definitely needed a mention here, because even though we'd made all these changes, it was still a massive frustration. In hindsight, I don't think it was working. We basically were the middleman kind of thing for facilities, so we didn't actually do anything, we just forwarded it on to different departments. Cut us out entirely, I'm not sure. Though in hindsight, I probably would have changed the responsibility of facilities or even created a dedicated post within the team to deal with that. One thing that we needed was a new HR system. I mentioned we eventually got one, but we kind of wrongly made the assumption early on that because the focus was on efficiency, there was redundancies in the organisation, we kind of assumed that we probably wouldn't get one. In hindsight, I'd have probably put a little bit more time into that and argued the point, because once we had it, we saw the benefits and how much it would have helped us back then. So that's one thing that I definitely would have done differently. Perhaps would have reviewed the HR structure at some point to basically have even a lower level HR administrator and then a HR advisor to take even more sort of the sort of cases from that point. And massively underestimated the amount of time. This was such a painful exercise that we went through for over a course of over a year, where we were, it was a lot of sort of stress and tears, but painful, but definitely worth it in the end. And